acceptance isn't always the easiest thing, but actually, acceptance is so critical. Acceptance of not just our child's diagnosis, but also the severity of the special needs that each of our children have is so important.
This is a show where we share stories from the disability community, breaking barriers, one conversation at a time. More than that, we hope each episode lifts your spirits up. My name is Chin Xian, and I'm your host. Today, we have a special guest who is working in the disability space, who has children with autism. He is Mr. Bernard Chu. Bernard, thank you for agreeing to be here today. So, Bernard, for our listeners who may not be familiar with your background, could you kindly introduce yourself and share a bit about your professional and your personal journey?
Yeah, sure, Chin Xian. Thanks for having me. I've been living with my two children who both are on the spectrum. My son's 21 and my daughter is 18, and they're both on the spectrum. So I've had, I suppose, 21 years of lived experience with autism. Professionally, I spent the last 7.5 years working with persons with autism and other special needs as well. So currently, I'm the CEO of St. Andrew's Autism Center. But prior to that, I spent and I've been CEO of SAAC for the last 4.5 years. Prior to that, I was Director of Special Education in MOE for 3 years. So all in all, 7.5 years professionally in the special needs space, and 21 years of experience living with autism, caring for my two children.
Wow, okay. Thanks. So could you walk us through your experience as a parent of children with autism? Specifically, we are looking at perhaps like some of the early signs or behavior that stood out during toddler school years.
Sure. So my son, Evan, is now 21. He happens to be in our own DACs at SAAC. He was diagnosed at the age of 2.5. By the time he had turned about 18 months or so, we had already observed that there were some signs that he wasn't hitting his developmental milestones. So he wasn't having eye contact. He had fixations with certain interests, and he was obviously not speaking. At about just after he turned 2, we decided to get him a diagnosis, and after queuing for a few months, the diagnosis came back and confirmed that he had autism. And so we've had, obviously when he was diagnosed, the first thing that as parents we have got to grapple with is our own acceptance. And by that, what I mean is that I think for any parent, when their children are born, they would have certain dreams for their children, right? So they would maybe, like for me, I love playing soccer, so I dream of being able to teach my son how to play soccer. But there are many other dreams that our children will grow up well, study well, do well in life. But the moment we get a diagnosis, and I think many parents of other special needs children probably have the same experience, we then start wondering, what will our child be able to do? What will he not be able to do? What sort of life is he going to live later on in life? How much can we, despite his autism, how much can we help him to grow and learn and be as independent as possible? But also, if, of course, as parents, we wonder what sort of support is he going to need when he hit school-going age, when he's in adulthood. So those are the questions we all have to grapple with. And sometimes for us as parents, because we grieve over the loss of these dreams for our children, we can get into a bit of a denial. So for myself, it probably I say the first 6 months was quite difficult after the diagnosis. But once kind of got past that initial stage, then of course I started thinking about then now what do I do to help my son, and so that was really our journey. For my daughter, she was diagnosed with dyslexia at the age of 6, and more recently diagnosed to have mild autism. But regardless, I think, whenever we receive a diagnosis, there is always that for parents, we do have to grapple with the news of the diagnosis. Professionally, in my time at SAAC, I think I have seen some parents struggle a little bit more with acceptance than others. But I do think that the parents who are able to get beyond that stage of denial and are able to accept, they are the ones who are probably in a better position to then start looking for how to help their own children. So not an easy journey for the parents for sure, but once they're able to accept, then it is easier then for the parents to come and think through how best to help their own children.
Okay. Just now you mentioned about took about 6 months to process, to accept, and you then mention like what's next. I'm not sure if you're okay to share like what were some of the steps that you take as family to see like, okay, what do we do next?
Yeah. I suppose then you start reading up. So the most important, I think, for parents who first receive news of the diagnosis for their children is to start reading up, to begin first to understand our own children. Because if we don't understand what that diagnosis says, right, whether that diagnosis is autism, dyslexia, or something else, we don't understand what that special need is, then the danger is that we really don't really understand our own children. And if we cannot understand our own children, then I think that journey of acceptance becomes even harder for the parents. So I think the first thing to do is obviously start reading up, start really understanding what in our case, what autism is, how does autism manifest itself in terms of behaviors, in terms of what they can do, what they can't do. And then, what are the interventions, what can best help our children to, despite their autism and their disability, to continue to learn and make progress. So I think that's probably the first step. I strongly believe that parents are their children's best therapists. And so while parents also look out for the professional help and services, whether that's in the form of therapy or early intervention services, we as parents, we also do need to get ourselves trained as much as we can, because really the interaction time, whether with the EPIC teachers or eventually the SPED teachers or the mainstream teachers, or even the private therapists, the interaction time is actually much shorter compared to the time we interact with our own children. So my wife and I invested in training ourselves. And of course, in our case, it's slightly different because my wife was already trained to work with persons with autism before we were married. So we had a bit of a head start, but nonetheless, we continue to learn, pick up as much as we can. And then we have the tools to be able to interact with our own children and be able to help them with their development as well. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Bernard. I think the 2 steps that you share is really, really very, very important. Then, okay, the next question is, as after your son and then both you and your wife welcome your daughter, so what considerations went into the decision to have a second child, and did the concerns about autism in your first child, the son, play a role? in the process.
Yeah. I mean, if you read the research says that if one of your children has autism, subsequent children has a much higher chance of being on a spectrum, something like 20% actually, not 20% higher chance, as in your child will, the odds increase to 20%. That's 1 in 5, right? So for us as parents, of course, that was weighing at the back of our minds. But we do believe that children are a blessing. So we took the risk, we went ahead. And of course, we prayed very hard that our next child be born and will not have that same challenges that our son has. And I mean, my daughter's special needs are obviously not as severe as my son. So in some ways, God answered that prayer. But I think it crosses every parent's mind. So I have many friends who are fellow parents of children with special needs who decided not to go on and have another child. And I think, well, I mean, every parent will have to make their own decision. But yeah, we made a decision to go ahead, but with much prayer. Yeah.
Okay. Reflecting on your family's journey, what have been some of the most significant challenges you faced and also the milestones that you celebrated together? So challenges and milestones.
So many, right? Because my son is now 21, right? So if I just focus on my son, I think if I look at the different stages of life and our family's journey with him, interestingly, when he turned about 4, I was blessed to get an MOE scholarship. So we went to the US. I studied for my master's there for a year. So he had exposure to a different system. In the US, he was placed in a public school with an inclusive class, meaning to say there were both children with and without special needs in the same class. I think that was a very helpful year for him. He made much progress when he was there, and I think so we learned a lot too from the teachers and the therapists there. But soon after we came back, it was time for him to start school. And it became quite obvious when we came back, he was about 5. It became quite obvious to us that because he was still nonverbal, that there is no chance he's going to be in a mainstream school. No chance too that he was going to go to Pathlight. So we simply just decided to look for the best SPED school that doesn't do the national curriculum for him. In the meantime, after we came back, I remember that I forgot to mention, in those days there was a long wait list for SPED school places. So he didn't start SPED school at the age of 7. He started at the age of 8. And between the time we came back when he turned 5 to the time he was 8, we invested quite a lot. He was going to 2 schools. So he was going to SSA run early intervention center in the afternoon, but he was going to a private early intervention center in the morning. Milestones wise, I suppose it's the simple things that we often take for granted. For many years, we were training him to be toilet trained, and he was only fully toilet trained at the age of about 10, I think. But a little progress that I think they make over the years, I think, is what encourages us. Just being able to go to school, having a simple way to functionally communicate with us. I think all along our main aim was for him to be happy. So some of the dreams that typical parents would have for their children with special needs, I suppose for us, we were not pinning too much hope on him hitting a lot of milestones. More important for us was how do we help him to live as dignified, as meaningful, as normal a life as possible. I think when we frame it that way, maybe the journey of parenting does become easier. So he went to sped school at 8. And of course, many years later, at the age of 18, he graduated from sped school, and then came the problem of what happens in adulthood, right? After school, and of course, many would have heard of the post-18 cliff effect. So unfortunately, the national situation is still not ideal. There are not enough DAC places today, or places today for SPED graduates coming out of the SPED schools for those with autism. So even though I'm CEO of SAAC, he had to queue for a while. He had to queue for 2.5 years to come back to SAAC's DAC. In the meantime, he attended DAC at another SSA. Today, I think our hope is simply that he will live happy and as normal a life as possible, which sometimes for parents without special needs children may not sound like a very big deal, but other parents of special needs children will identify with us that actually just a normal and dignified life isn't as easily attainable, for those like my son. So we work hard. I think all parents do want the best for their children. So we work hard. We try and we try and give the best support we can to our own children. We try to give up the best support we can to Evan all along the way. There are ups and downs. Behaviors, challenging behaviors or behaviors of concern are obviously one source of stress for parents or caregivers of children with autism. Over the years, Evan's behaviors, sometimes new behaviors will come and completely perplex us as parents for 2 or 3 years, and then sometimes they'll go away. Even though professionally my wife and I are both trained, we can't always also identify the reasons for those behavior because Evan is largely non-verbal. So there were certainly challenges, but I suppose and some of those challenges, to be honest, as parents, I would say over the years, there is a bit of a nagging feeling that most other parents, even some of our closer friends, will not be able to fully understand or identify with some of the challenges of caregiving. But it doesn't need to be a lonely journey. So over the years, I've made good friends with many fellow caregivers, and also the professionals that work with Evan, and the teachers that used to work with him. This is a sector where there are many caring people who want to journey with the caregivers, and in a way that has I think helped make the journey for my wife and I a little bit more tolerable, more not so traumatic, I suppose. But really, my other encouragement to younger parents is also that we don't have to take that journey alone. And when I meet a new friend who's a parent of a fellow parent of a special needs child, we just click. I can't explain it. It's just something that happens. Is that you sit down, you met the person for the first time, and you start exchanging stories about our caregiving and the demands of caregiving, and suddenly you just click, and then you've just made a new friend on the spot. So that's really been my experience for the last 20 years or so. It doesn't need to be a lonely journey. Yeah.
Thank you very much. As you mentioned about challenges, then my next one would be what then keeps you what keeps you going? Like after going through the tough challenges, how do you take care of yourself to recharge, and maintain well-being?
Before I answer that question, I just want to say that some days I do wonder to myself what must have possessed me to go and to apply for the role as CEO of SAAC. Because in SAAC we care for about 500 persons like my son, and obviously it's hard work. Not too many people in Singapore truly appreciate and understand the needs of persons on the moderate severe end of the autism spectrum. But what keeps me going? Let's see. Well, I think for all parents, after a while we learn that if we are not able to care for ourselves, we are not able to care for our children. So different parents would have different strategies. For myself, I try to exercise as much as I can, which isn't as often as my doctor would like, but we do different things to decompress. I try to spend a bit of time with my family. I must remember, even though we are caregivers, it's still important. The husband-wife relationship is still important. So spending time with my spouse. I take my daughter, who's on a much higher functioning end of the spectrum, cycling. I try to take her cycling once a week. Don't manage it every week, unfortunately. So we do different things to unpack. I watch a bit of TV too, usually soccer matches and K-dramas. But it's whatever we do that gives a normalcy to life. I think as parents we have to do, because after a while we learn that if we are burnt out, then we are in no position to look after our children. And so that I think it's important that parents also learn to exercise self-care as well. Yeah.
Thanks for that. Yeah, it is true. I think as I'm not a caregiver myself, but I've worked with caregivers and I've seen how it's very natural for you all to put the child first before anything else, and it's really not easy to think of it the other way. So it's really hope that you really bear this in mind every day. It's really not easy.
But Chin, I also want to add one more thing, which is that I've noticed over the years, talking to a number of caregivers, but both in my professional capacity and also just speaking to friends who are also parents of other special needs children. Acceptance isn't always the easiest thing, but actually acceptance is so critical. Acceptance of not just our child's diagnosis, but also the severity of the special needs that each of our children have is so important, because number one, it frames for us as caregivers a switch from always thinking everything is hopeless, there are no solutions, to what can we do now. That's the first thing, and that actually lightens the load for us. We feel a fair bit more at peace knowing that we can just simply do what we can for our children and not worry about what we can't do, or not worry about what our children can't do too much. So we need to stay positive as parents, and to stay positive as parents, we need that level of acceptance. On the flip side, unfortunately, I have seen instances where parents struggle with acceptance, and sometimes for many, many years, not just years, sometimes for many decades. And unfortunately, when that happens, the relationship with their own children naturally suffers. I had the fellow father of a special needs child once asked me this question, because this friend of mine runs parenting workshops. And as a special needs father, he would often do workshops for other fathers of special needs children. And he told me that often he would ask the other parents this penetrating question. It's a very penetrating question. He would ask them, how lovable is your child with special needs? How lovable is your child with special needs? And given all of the challenges that autism and other special needs come with, if parents are being entirely honest, definitely not 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, we will find our child lovable. But unless we find that internal capacity within us to love our children, that relationship will suffer. And we will, sometimes I'll put it a bit starkly here, not to offend any parents that's listening to this podcast, but just to kind of drive home the point. If we try to make our children unautistic, we're going to impose misery on them. We will do things that will be counterproductive to our children's growth and counterproductive to our children's happiness. So for parents that are really struggling with acceptance and they recognize that, my advice really is for the parents to go and seek professional help and work through some of those issues themselves, so that they are in a much better position themselves. They are much more at peace. They are able to be more themselves, and then by extension, they are much more able to care and help their own children. So that's something that I've noticed over the years that I really would like to share with the audience, because that's very critical, right? Yeah.
Thank you very much, brother. Yeah, I think this part, I mean, it didn't occur to me that I thought that, for example, I thought the caregivers that I work with by now they would be already more accepting. But now that you mentioned, it hit me that there could be one father that I have in mind when I see how he speaks about his child, about how he tries to treat him as normal as possible, because then I realized, oh, maybe he's accepted only to a certain extent, but he might not have fully accepted to like how you mentioned.
I think parenting a special needs child is tricky because there's something that a parent is trying to balance. Maybe I'll try and put it this way. Research has shown that how positive the parents are is a big predictor of the eventual outcomes in adulthood for a person with autism. Meaning to say that the more positive a parent is, the more likely the outcomes for the child will be better in adulthood. Now, having said that, if the parent is unrealistically optimistic and cannot accept that child can't do certain things and lives in a world where keep saying that my child can do this is when the rest of us evidently sees that the child can't, then actually that's not healthy for the child either. So we need to be positive. We need to still have those aspirations that our children can learn and can develop and can grow more and more independent, but at the same time not be unrealistic in terms of what our expectations of our own children are. It's a bit of a balancing act, I have to say. Yeah.
Okay. So I move away slightly from this, but actually it's very important topic to how like a typical simple day for you and your family is like in a weekday after work or Saturday or Sunday. How is it like?
Interesting question. My son wakes up at 5 a.m. So he has to go to bed at 8 o'clock. Reason for that is that the bus journey is forever and ever. So he needs to board the bus at 7 o'clock, but the bus can't pick him up at our place. So my helper is the one who actually sends him to the pickup point. So he leaves the house by 6:15 in the morning. Actually, his day starts before hours. So we'll wake up probably just in time to say goodbye to him. So for our family, we probably don't see each other. So my wife and I are obviously busy getting ready for work. One of the things I have to do before I get to work is I have to send my daughter to school. So because my daughter also has her own difficulties, traveling in the train in the morning is very difficult for her because it's way too crowded, way too noisy. So that happens in the morning. Then of course my wife and I are busy with work the whole day. Evan comes back from the center. I think the bus gets back by about 4:15. So my helper then brings him up, helps to give him a shower, and then he just relaxes after a long day at the center. The rest of us come back at about maybe 6:30, 7 thereabouts. And then in the evening, we try and enjoy a bit of time together. And then Evan goes to bed by 8. Then I have to chase Chloe, my daughter, to bed because she doesn't want to go to bed. And I have to keep reminding her next day she has to wake up early to go to school. That's our typical day, not very different from what most families are. But like I said just now, there are times when new behaviors will surface. Last year and the year before last, some of Evan's behaviors became extremely difficult. He was banging his head against the wall quite frequently. And sometimes he wouldn't go to bed and he would just stay up and be so compulsive about wanting to bang his head against the wall. The only way to stop that behavior is for me to put my hand between his forehead and the wall. So he'd rather hurt his own forehead, but he wouldn't hurt my hand. So that's just one behavior. I'm just naming one perplexing behavior that he has had for the last 2 years. Time probably doesn't permit me to explain how we got to the root of that behavior and how that behavior has improved. But I think for many parents and many caregivers, that's our life. We don't go to bed until our child with special needs goes to bed. So in those 2 years, every night I'll come back and look at my wife, then we'll see lah. Is she more sleepy or am I more sleepy? So whoever is more sleepy goes to bed first lah, and the other one of us will have to stay up. Those are some of the very real challenges of caregiving. But as a father, and I think both my wife and I feel the same way, we try to keep our family life as normal as possible. Meaning to say, on weekends, we try to take the family out on Sundays to church, on alternate weeks to either my mother-in-law's place or my parents' place. But it does get very, very difficult, right? Given the behaviors our children sometimes have, it does get very, very difficult and in some ways tiring lah, for us just to prepare them to go out. It can take a lot of effort, right? So I think special needs parents will probably identify with this, or at least the parents of children with autism. If our children have difficulty just transitioning, meaning to say stepping out of the house or taking that journey from our house to the MRT station, all of those things can take much more time and much more effort than not. And bear in mind, my son is 21. Right, so for most of my peers, when I go and live with them, they are already starting to talk about an empty nest. Their children are starting university or finishing polytechnic, and they're beginning to wonder, what do I do with this empty nest? In time to come. That's not a privilege that any of the special needs parents, especially those with children on the more severe end of disability, can have. We're going to be parents for life. We're going to be caregivers for life. So we try to keep that life as normal as possible, but it is really not easy. And so social isolation becomes a very, very real, unfortunately, a very, very real possibility and reality for many special needs families. So to the caregivers, I want to say, be brave. Don't be thick-skinned. Sometimes I tell parents, we want society to be more inclusive so our children don't feel left out of society. But how can we help society become more inclusive if we hide our children at home and the rest of the public don't have a chance to see some of these behaviors? I think because too many parents kind of hide our children at home, those behaviors in the minds of many members of the public, therefore, is not normalized. And so at SAAC, we also believe that it is our role to educate the public, help the public understand some of the behaviors that somebody who doesn't understand anything about autism may find to be very unusual. Stimming behaviors, meltdowns. We try in everyday layman language to explain to the members of the public what those why they engage in those behaviors, so that we can normalize the behaviors. People do not see those behaviors as unusual or behaviors that should be stopped and should not be shown in public. Right? So it works both ways. I think the more accepting the public is, the more understanding the public has, not just awareness. I think we need to go beyond disability or special needs awareness. We need to get to a deeper level of understanding. And if Singaporeans acquire a deeper and deeper level of understanding, whether it's autism or of special needs, whether it's autism or other special needs, then I think the parents will feel that bringing the child out to the public becomes safer and safer. I've gone all the way to advocacy and on inclusion, but I think for us as a family, we try to keep life as normal, but life is not normal lah. Much as we try and keep life as normal as possible, life is not normal. Our family has not traveled on a plane together since before COVID, because when Evan's behavior started becoming more challenging, we really don't want to bring him on a plane for him to have a full meltdown on a plane, and then everybody's plane journey is disrupted, and that's just actually too much stress for us as well lah. So I think those are some of the things that maybe are unusual in our journey as caregivers, but we try to love our children just as much as any other parent would love their children. Evan has taught us a lot. We have learned the true meaning of unconditional love. When we as parents have to grapple with the loss of those dreams for our children, then the love for our children also becomes more and more unconditional. We are challenged to love them more and more unconditionally in that sense. Yeah.
Just now, since you were talking about, I really appreciate your heartfelt sharing, brother. Just now you mentioned about advocacy, right? So which brings me to this question. Awareness of autism has progressed over the past few years. There's a good number of people who have at least a basic understanding, but there's still, as we all know, a large room for improvement. So, based on, in your opinion, like where you see the gaps are and how we address those
gaps. I think there's awareness today. There is quite widespread awareness. People know the word autism. Unfortunately, some people's impression of autism is what I call the Netflix definition of autism. They watch Netflix, right? If they are into American shows, maybe they watch The Good Doctor. If they're into K-dramas, they watch Extraordinary Attorney Woo. And they watch those shows, and it depicts a certain picture of autism. But unfortunately, I find most shows actually depict the higher functioning, the milder end of the autism spectrum. And so then people go away with the thinking, oh, I know autism. I know what autism is. And that recent incident on Stomp, where the autistic youth went to press the emergency stop button on the MRT train, and then the mother was so then all the rest of the commuters were obviously very unhappy with the young man doing what he did, and then the whole incident kind of blew up, and it got on Stomp. I think what disturbed me really was when I saw the comments about the incidents, and there were comments like, for example, one other parent of an autistic child said, "That's why I don't bring my son on the train. I only take Grab. And that disturbed me because what does that mean? Does having autism or a certain severity of autism condemn the whole family to never taking the train together? We take something as simple as taking the MRT for granted, right? It's a basic right, right? Right? We just tap the card and go in and we board the train, right? Then I think there were also other comments that suggested the mum was not a good parent. But all of this stem from, I believe, that just a lack of understanding about why persons with autism behave the way they do. So I also can't get too angry with the members of the public who put those comments, because I think we while there is general awareness of autism, everybody says, "Oh, I know autism. I want to support persons with autism," but many people don't fully understand what is it that autism entails, and therefore do not understand how best to support persons with autism and their caregivers in public. So at SAAC, what we're trying to do is we're trying to educate. Our education tagline is now "Understanding leads to acceptance," right? Hashtag understanding leads to acceptance. And so some of the postings I put on my social media, which are very much produced by our communications team, a wonderful communications team in SAAC, some of the posts have gone viral, as you are aware, Jin Xian, right? What we seek to do is to take certain things that members of the public might see from time to time in public, and then reframe the way people are thinking by explaining why persons with autism have to engage in those behaviors, like stimming behaviors, for example. And so I think when we are able to do that and members of the public start to have that deeper understanding, then I think slowly that stigma will go away. And the public spaces, we hope, will become more and more inclusive. What's also interesting to me as I lead SAAC is that we have had different corporations reach out to SAAC and say, "Could you please come and train our staff?" And that tells me there's a desire, many people have a desire to want to make those spaces more inclusive. So we feel that it is our responsibility to go out and educate. It's our responsibility to go out and help others understand, truly understand. And advocacy cannot just be about, "Hey, look, the people we are helping have all of these needs. Please help, please help." That's a very basic form of advocacy. I think advocacy has to be more educational. And over time, my hope and my wish is that more and more members of the public understand, and therefore the stigma will be reduced. And hopefully, therefore, we will be able to have a more inclusive Singapore as we go along. Yeah.
Thanks for that. Yeah, you mentioned about the Stomp incident. It was really not a very nice incident on all sides, on the staff of the train staff as well, how everything. But you put on a very important lens, which is when you mentioned about the comment, which I'm not even a caregiver, but when you mentioned about that's why I take the Grab with my child and not, it's like
Yeah.
Why should you have to take a Grab to go, like what you say is really a basic right, staying in Singapore to take the train, take a bus, and
Right.
it's on us it's really on us as a community to be more open. And I think you also mentioned something really important. It's kind of like a cycle where the parents be braver, bring the child out, and then the people from outside be more open. Then they see, they understand more, then they accept more, they show more kindness. Then the family feel better. Then they encourage them even more, and then it becomes kind of like a flywheel, and then hopefully, so I do see it. And now that you mentioned, I do also want to share a few heartwarming stories that I see in the public, where I see a child with special needs having a meltdown. So also in the train, and interestingly, it's not a one-off incident. There was a few incidents back to back. Then because I work here, then I thought, okay, maybe I should help. But before I could even help out, there was already another member of the public approaching, and how she approached was great, because she just simply asked, how can I help, right? Because another thing to note is, like, if you want to help, you are not really sure how to help.
Yeah.
Who's the best person who knows how to help is the caregiver, probably. Correct. The caregiver. And when I see this member of the public just taking that step and just asking, how can I help, it warms me out. I don't know what that person does for a living, but it just warms me. Hey, this person know what she's doing, and then I wish that more people like her. And good thing was, it was not a one-off. So one incident is the one in the train, the mother with with child, and the other incident was, I was actually walking to on my way to work. There was this child just sitting on the floor on the path and does not want to go to school because he was wearing a school uniform, and the mother was just waiting patiently, and then similarly there was another, before I could take a step in, and then there was another member of public also. So I wish to see more of such cases. Not that I want people to melt down in public, but it happens sometimes. But when it does happen, I really hope to see more members of the public. They generally understand, they generally care, and it shows from the way how they ask how to help. So hope that really there's really more of this happening. Just like,
so I do believe that most Singaporeans are actually quite kind. It's just that they don't know how, right? So yeah, and you're right. The best thing is just ask, like, how can I help? Yeah. So I think that's any prejudice or stigma or bias comes from a lack of understanding. So if that's our starting point, then the more we can educate, the more we can help people understand, then the more inclusive they are, more likely to be. So yeah, we look forward to definitely more and more Singaporeans like that, going out and helping. Yeah.
Okay. I think we are coming almost to the end of our podcast, but there is one question that I will want to ask for every guest, and I think the last one, and I hope that when viewer audience will listen, they give them a better understanding. So the question is, what is one quality or characteristic of your son that you wish more people could understand and appreciate? Of course, like, what has he taught you? So, but I really like Evan, like, what you wish that, if people know this about him, they realize actually he's okay, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Can I be greedy and share? So
Please.
if you ask me, right, what has Evan taught me? He's taught me lots and lots of things. One of the things he's taught me is contentment. Just you should see his face, just the joy that he has with very simple things in life. Simple things in life, like trying new food that he has never ever eaten. And you see the beaming from year to year, and you see on his face that joy. And so sometimes for us, the rest of us, our lives become a bit too complicated. We worry about this, worry about that, and we stop taking joy in the simple things in life. So that's one thing that I think he's really, really taught me. But there is so much I wished that people can look beyond the challenges Evan and others like him have, and look also for their personalities and their strengths. So one of the things that I do know, even though Evan is pretty much non-verbal, he can be quite cheeky, right? And I have a picture of him once with with the DAC staff where he's holding up his hand with his snack because obviously the staff is asking for a piece of that snack and he wants to keep it to himself. So he's like hands up and he's smiling and he's obviously being very cheeky, right? So each of them have their own personalities. We get to know them. We realize they're very human, like you and me. Each of them have their own strengths as well. He may be non-verbal, but he's got quite a musical talent. He can play some simple pieces on the piano. So I think every person with autism or any other disability is an individual human being deserving of human dignity, and we should look beyond the challenges that their disability pose or their special needs pose, and look for that person that we can make friends with and be friends with.
Okay, with that, Bernard, thank you so much. We have all for today's episode of Let's. Big thank you to Bernard for sharing everything. Actually, you have shared way more than it's really awesome. So grateful. So if today's conversation resonate with all of you, please share this with your friends and family, whoever you think that this really resonates with you. And yeah, with that, this is Jason at LetsLiftSG signing out. Thank you, Bernard. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'll share the links on St. Andrew's Autism Center on what they do also in our
Thank you.
episode.
Thank you so much, Nityan. Thank you. Been a pleasure. Thank you.